Yes, it is almost Wednesday. It's Tuesday, and thank you for being here with me.
It's so funny. We were kind of like chatting before we went live about my workout classes, and that was really how I used to like tell time, like be like, oh, it's this workout tonight, so it's Tuesday. And now
Yeah,
everything has just flipped on its head.
I know we're in shaking of the almond tree. We're being shook, and so the things that aren't attached to truth are falling off.
Hmm. You know what I've been doing? I've been watching Dr. Shafali has daily talks. She's calling it Viral Wisdom, a play on virus. I don't know if you're familiar with her or have followed her much, but she would be like similar to maybe like a Byron Katie or an Eckhart Tolle. And I love her wisdom, and she's really been helping me stay grounded throughout this time. I'm curious
Mm.
what content you've been turning to feel grounded and like you're really alchemizing this moment.
What I just did is where I go. I just take a huge deep breath, and honestly, I really haven't been consuming a lot of content. I've been creating it, and I think that where we are on the hero's journey is a mirror of the kind of content that we're gonna want. And so where I am right now is I'm in a season of creation. I'm really, really, I'm upset. I'm upset. I'm allowing myself to feel upset, anger, rage, frustration about what's going on in our world, about our brothers and sisters giving up their power. And I'm here to let you know that's not the truth.
Can you
So
say,
the content I'm creating is different than I think what's a lot of content out there.
yeah, can you say a little bit more about people giving up their truth in case some people
Sure.
might not be aware of what you're referring to?
Yeah. So, well, the truth is unique for all of us, but it's undefeated over time. So, my truth is going to be different than yours and anyone else's. But when I say truth, I just mean the irrefutable, universal truth that guides us all, and that is the laws of nature, right? In nature, there's always a beginning, middle, and end. Nothing has year over year growth forever. And so, what I'm talking about when I mention the almond tree and the truth falling on and the truth holding on, but everything falling off, is our Mother Earth has been poisoned for so long. This planet has been abused in the name of progress and
Mhm,
profit.
mhm,
And so what's happened is we've all kind of enjoyed the comforts. We enjoy, the couches and the trips and the cheap food, perceived cheap food.
mhm.
And we trade our freedoms for that comfort. And who suffers the most is our character and Mother Earth. So when I say the truth is going to hold on to the tree and everything else is going to fall away, what I mean is the unconscious capitalistic models that are guiding so many people towards ignoring their sentient truth, ignoring the laws of nature, ignoring the ecosystems of our planet, ignoring anything that's in really love and connection. That's the stuff that's going to fall away. So the truth is unique to all of us, but the way that we experience universal truth is the same. We all know this planet cannot take any more than the abuse we've been giving her. And so she's given us a virus, and she got sick from us. So she gave us a virus, and we're all dealing with the consequences now. But one way we can go and what we can really focus on together as a collective is to take our emotional inventory of what's really important to us. What is my truth? What is my unique truth? Because it's different for everyone. And how does that relate to the universal truth that we all experience?
Yeah. I think what it's been bringing up for me is I know myself and so many people are just go, go, go all the time. And
Yeah,
so, and we'll often put off kind of the big important thinking, the the thinking that requires more stillness and more calm. Uh, I'll do that when I do the retreat next year, or too busy to do that now. And so, for me, what
yeah,
it's been bringing up is it's been forcing me to confront just kind of the ways that I might be like distracting, even, positive things like I'm very, very active. And a lot of ways my activity is a way that I keep kind of my mind calm and still. Like
sure.
one of my favorite things to do is bike riding because it's like the movement of my legs and it allows me to be kind of so clear and focused in my mind because I have kind of that distraction. So for me, what it's been showing is, yeah, just the ways that I kind of distract and might feel a little bit uncomfortable, just kind of sitting with a painful feeling or a sad feeling. It was funny because I had a great conversation with Brian Reeves last week. Do you know Brian?
I don't.
No? Okay. I figured you might. You're kind of like similar souls. And I know that some of his friends are people that you're close with as well.
I get to know him.
Yeah, he's also in the California area in LA, and he's a relationship coach. And we were talking about a really powerful friendship. It happened to be with a guy that I had started out dating, and it wasn't a fit dating, and yet we just loved each other so deeply, and we remained friends. But I think on some level it was hard for him to remain friends because some romantic feelings, and the friendship suddenly ended. And so we had a really powerful coaching session together on air on his IG Live, where he helped me see some of the ways in which it brought up past pain, ghosting experiences, and also ways in which I was maybe ignoring some of the anger, like wasn't allowing myself to feel anger at what happened because that's not an acceptable emotion for women. So I totally forgot why I brought that up, but oh, because like these, I have so much more space and time in my schedule that's allowing for this reflection that I would normally be like, I don't have time for that, rushing off to a workout.
Yeah, God, there's such a harmonious balance that we're all trying to achieve of how do I feel enough of my feelings to be guided towards the truth versus what do I do when I'm bathing in the pain body and I'm stuck in an emotion? Because emotions are energetic, right? So, like, think about what even energy is. Like, emotion is energy in motion.
Mhm.
So, we have energy that gets stuck in our physical body. And so if I'm not moving that energy through, it's going to find a way out. And quite frankly, it's going to come out sideways. You know, when energy comes out sideways, I don't know if we can curse on your show, but I
Yeah,
love
we're
occasional cuss
pretty
words.
open minded.
We're good. Okay.
A whole like
So here,
150 comment thread about sexual fantasies last night. So I think
all
you're
right, sweet.
in good shape.
We're good. We're good. Well, the thing, think about even the word, FUCK. It's for unlawful carnal knowledge, right? It's a very powerful word. And so sometimes people are offended by swear words, but what I'm going to say, it really necessitates the F word because we are so fucking lost, but yet we all have the power to find what is true within ourselves. So let me just say that again. We're so fucking lost as a race and as a society and as a group right now, yet the answers are in plain sight. We were born with these answers. We know exactly what's going on. The balance you're talking about of do I feel my feelings? Do I not? Do I have the time to feel my feelings because I'm in quarantine and lockdown? Or in my regular life, am I finding that I just go for a 30-mile bike ride to not feel them? It's a delicate balance, but in some way, I think we're all trying to move the energy. We're all trying to get the energy to be in motion so that we can feel alive. We can feel emotion. That emotion comes out sideways, though, as you know, it can be shopping, porn, food, marijuana, alcohol, cigarettes, anything at all to get the energy to be either sedated or quelled or directed sideways. But we all have this genuine path of expressing our emotions, and that's unique to us on our journey. And that genuine path is so challenging, yet it's so rewarding, right? It's exactly what you're talking about. Like, how do we walk that path? And how do we do it with truth? How do we actually feel truthful as we're walking our own path?
Yeah, it was interesting because after that experience with Brian, just kind of talking it through with him and him illuminating some stuff that I hadn't quite realized, it almost felt like an energetic cord was cut. Like I had
Yeah.
such intense, almost overwhelming feelings of both like sadness and love towards this person, sadness about losing this person and love towards this person still, just who he is.
Mm.
And then after that conversation, it really felt like someone had just cut a cord, and it was just like the water stilled and it was peaceful.
Yeah, it's cool because I really did. I continue to do this work just like you. And this morning I cut a physical cord. I mean, I actually felt the cord cut. And if you would have told me that when I was a personal trainer that I'd be cutting energetic cords, I'd be like, you're crazy. I'd be like, what are you talking about? Energetic cords, you know?
Can I ask you a question? I feel like
Mm.
disgust, self-disgust, is a easier emotion to tap into than say like sadness and
Yeah,
loss. And I'm
sure.
curious why you think that is.
Well, if you look at the scale of emotions from Hawkins, right? At the bottom of the scale of the emotions is shame. Shame is like, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, shame is the lowest level emotion possible. And then, of course, being all the way up the scale is like the ladder of emotions where you get up to synchronicity and one and self-actualization. But I think to answer your question, why it's so easy for us to self-deprecate and be like, oh my God, I fucking hate the way I look, or I hate this, or I'm so disgusted with myself and all that, is because it allows our ego to be right,
Mm,
even if that ego is getting something that hurts us. Ego is always seeking for righteousness, and righteousness lives within all of us. I just read a quote from Jordan Peterson today, like heaven and hell exist in the mind. And so we choose either consciously or unconsciously where we're going and how we're going there, whether we know it or not. So, long answer to your question is it's because our ego gets to be right. It gets to hold on to the flag of, I gotcha. You are not enough. You are ugly. You are disgusting. And so I go back to when I was in such ego. I feel like life is this constant ego relaxation over and over and over again. Like, how do I
100%.
relax my ego? So that's where that came from.
Um, Speaking of ego, so you kind of took us through an express version of your
Hmm.
journey over the past 20 years. There was a moment that you've also talked about that I thought was really powerful, kind of like the essence of what you're doing now. So you were in Vegas and you were working with a coach, and he said, what is the thing that you were most afraid of sharing with the world? Can you share with the group what that was and how that message, kind of that call to something greater, has shaped you up until now?
Wow. It's cool because I'm going through the exact same thing right now that I was in 2016, 2017. So I'm 2 years of podcasting, and I had really just started to cut my teeth in the podcasting and interview world. And I got to this place where I was using fitness technology, wearables, Fitbits, Aura rings, and I was coaching clients online. And I started to just realize, God, it's really not about data. Technology has nothing to do with behavior change. Behavior change is about tapping into someone's repressed childhood trauma, repressed childhood memories, their ability to not express themselves. That's where all weight gain and disease stems from. That's it. And so I learned that by going to the analytical route. Traditional masculine, I'm like, I'm going to figure out their data and then coach them on their data.
Mhm, mhm,
But I started to realize like that doesn't work. What really works was me sharing the things that I'm actually learning that have nothing to do with my Aura ring or my Fitbit. And it has everything to do with what I'm most afraid of sharing. Because in the dark, in those little dark corners, that's some type of message inside of me that's wanting to be lit up, that's wanting to be seen, whatever kind of meme or analogy you want to use. So I got to this place where I was like, man, I'm kind of broke. I don't really know how I'm going to make this business thrive. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to keep this thing up. And I got an intro from one of our podcast guests who took me to his friend in Vegas. This guy's name is Rocco. It's such an interesting, like, it's almost like a movie script.
yeah.
This guy was Rocco. He didn't even have a website. He's just like the guy behind the guy. I go out there and I do this weekend intensive in Vegas with him around how do I make my business grow. And I'm sitting at his table in the morning and we're eating eggs. And he was like, so what are you most afraid of sharing? And I was like, well, I'm most afraid of sharing that, like, I don't have wellness figured out. I'm not super happy with my body.
Mhm,
I'm not exactly sure how to make money. Like all the things that everyone else is dealing with. I just didn't want to talk about them because I wanted to be perceived as having my shit together, which is what a lot of leaders and podcasters and all these people want to be. Because in the ego's perception, going back to the ego, in the ego's perception, if I can trust this person and they seem like they have their shit together, well, then maybe I'll give them my money. But it's actually the opposite. And what he had me do is he had me do this exercise where I wrote down all the things that I wanted in a partner, like in a loving, committed relationship. And I came back to him and I was like, why are you having me write down relationship stuff for my business? And he goes, well, take away the intimacy stuff, the sexuality and every other quality that you wrote down. That is exactly who you're going to partner with in business. And that is exactly how you get to run your own business. And I was just like, like light bulb went off. My relationships is exactly the exact same thing as my business because it's me. I am the business. And so if I'm going to be about my business and my business gets to be about me, then I get to talk about the things that I'm struggling with. I've talked about porn addiction in the past. I've talked about emotional eating. I've talked about all my childhood trauma and plant medicines and breath work. I mean, like I've run the gamut. I've really gone there. And the more that I've done that, the more that I've begun to feel even more free. And there was this moment where he was like, so what are you actually doing then? And I was like, well, I'm just learning how to do it myself and connect with community and live this life of wellness. And like, I'm learning how to just live a good life, how to live life well. And he was like, oh, you're discovering what? He's like, what are you discovering? And I was like, how to have a great body and a healthy body and a sound mind. And he's like, you're discovering physical and emotional intelligence. And when he said that, it was like something just connected, those old school light switches, like just came down. And I was like, oh, that's going to be my whole life. That'll just be my whole life now. Because if I'm just going to discover physical and emotional intelligence so I can live my life well, well, then how great would that be to share with other people? And that was like the massive turning point where my business actually started to make money. And I actually really started to help people when I went the path of what I needed myself and vulnerably shared that. That made all the difference.
Yeah. It's so funny because I have a fitness trainer who's just a massive mentor and source of inspiration in my life. He's 25, so I'm about 15 years older than him, but
Sweet.
he's a very like wise old soul.
Yeah.
And he's done a lot of inner work as well. And the other day we were doing a virtual boot camp together. There were maybe like 20 people on. And he said, I want you to think of the thing that you're most afraid to share and then type
Mm-hmm.
it in the chat. And we all did. And it was interesting to see how many of them were relationship oriented.
Yeah. Yeah.
Super powerful.
It's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, especially during this time, like you'd think people would be more worried about like food or shelter, but ultimately, I think our sense of safety really does come from connection.
Yeah, Leah, what are we without connection? What are we even doing right now? Like, and I'm sorry if I offend anyone. Well, I'm not really sorry. I just want to buffer this comment. Like the thing that pisses you off, the thing that bothers you, the thing that triggers you, the thing that makes you go, "What the fuck?" That's the path.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you actually get to go. Are you sad? Are you depressed? Are you shameful? Are you angry? Like any of these lower level emotions, they're there as a guidepost to bring you to the higher ones,
Yeah.
but you have to fucking do it. You have to actually go through it. And that involves spiritual and emotional courage. And there's ways to build that courage.
Yeah. This is a little bit of a jump, but I know that you're in a very powerful relationship right now for you. And I'm curious
Speaking of courage,
yeah, speaking of courage
speaking of courage, yeah.
and being unmasked, I'm
Right.
curious if you can point to like one or two things that separate or kind of distinguish or define your current relationship from your previous one.
Well, let's put previous ones for sure. This relationship has brought out all the parts of me that I didn't even know were there. And there have been little inklings of that in past relationships, but there's something about really loving someone that's very different than you that'll bring it right out of you. I think we all, the ego wants to be like, oh, well, this person should just get me. It should just be easy. It should be like Alice in Wonderland. It should be like the glass slipper or the knight in shining armor. Like that's all bullshit. That's what Disney made us think when we were
Yeah.
kids. But what I've learned the most in this relationship is how do I stay in my center when life presents us unique challenges? And how do I not project any kind of codependency or neediness onto my partner when
Mhm.
I'm actually the one who's building my center, who's staying in my center? That's the fundamental lesson in this relationship is how do I stay in my center? How do I hold space? How do I speak my truth? I mean, it's a lot. Like the modern day masculine is holding a shit ton right now. Like we've never held so much. And it's because the pendulum is swinging so far back from when really like the old school patriarchy was in place that right now, and this is another polarizing comment, right now the pendulum has swung so hard back this way because it was, women were treated like property. They weren't allowed to vote. There's still a pain body rippling
Yeah.
with the feminine for how they were treated.
Yeah.
And a lot of us, myself included, are paying the fucking price for our fathers and grandfathers' sins still. So what we're all figuring out is how do we stay in our center? How do we know what's ours and what's not ours? And how do we heal ourselves? How do I heal myself from the ways of being that I learned from my father and my grandfather, and really just men in society. That's the fundamental challenge and the gift in this relationship.
You use the word modern masculine, and I'm curious what defines that or what distinguishes that for you.
Sure. The old school masculine had to go hunt and kill food to drag it back to the tribe. So we actually had to be skilled in hunting and skilled in outdoorsmanship and watermen and things like this. 250 plus years ago, that was all we had. Before the Industrial Revolution, the Agricultural Revolution, before now the Informational Revolution. Um, Tim Ferriss said it perfectly. He was like, money is the new spear. In the past, men were judged on their ability to hunt and kill and provide. We're still judged on that, yet it's not about killing and dragging something back to the tribe. It's about how do we use money to cut through life and to give us the abundance so that we can feel that we're providing and that we're protecting. I think the fundamental modern man dilemma is how do we become really skilled at earning money so that we can provide? And while we're doing that, how do we also hold this space so that the masculine and the feminine can heal? And that, I believe, is a very big challenge for all men that are on a conscious path. But to be honest, we have a lot of work to do. Like there's a lot of men that don't give a shit even about this conversation, because they're just so stuck in what's the sports on TV, what's the beer that I'm going to drink this weekend, and how many women have I slept with. That's the traditional conversation in most of America that I'm changing, and so are you.
Yeah. Whew. That's not what I expected you to say. Um, the I guess the money piece. I understand that for many women that's important. I also get that I'm in a bit of a unique situation in that I'm financially independent and I also don't want
Yeah.
kids. So
Mm,
it's just a different dynamic. So when I'm
totally.
interested in someone, yeah, to me, the self awareness is huge. Like intellectual challenge is huge. Sense of humor and playfulness is huge. And I feel like these are kind of uh, currencies that aren't very readily available. Like money to me seems like a pretty readily available currency among men, whereas
Hmm.
some of these other qualities that I described are much more kind of rare and
Yeah.
special.
Well, let's dig into that because when we look at the phrase earn money, it's really just about who am I? What do I do in the world? And do I feel worthy and valuable enough to call that money in? Like that's really what we're talking about here. So when I say that the tip of the spear for most men is now money, and that's how we're going to provide, yeah, that's a given. Like that's one of our responsibilities in the game that we're playing here on planet Earth. But while we do that, the way that we earn the money is just as important as the money itself.
Yeah,
Actually, it's way more important, right? So just because I earn money doesn't mean that I'm a good dude. It means that I'm taking loving responsibility to protect and provide for myself, or if I have a partner, my partner, or if I have a partner with kids, or if I don't, that's fine. I think that's the fundamental call for the masculine is we are protectors. Like if we have to protect something, if we don't have anything to protect, we start to feel meaningless. And if you look at a lot of behavioral psychology, there's a lot of research around the masculine getting extremely depressed. And by the way, the masculine and feminine can live in men or women.
yeah,
When I say the masculine, I'm just talking about the traditional, but it can exist for any type of relationship that's out there. A masculine essence partner is they're going to want to take care of the bills, provide, make sure everything's okay. And I think for men specifically, and I'll say this because I'm a man, when men are not earning and when they're not able to hunt and when they're not able to take care and protect, there starts to be a dwindling of energy. There starts to be a downward spiral. And this is what we see in relationships where the woman has to really take care of the whole relationship and carry the relationship. And I've experienced that before, and I've seen it with friends and with family. And I think once we start to deny the fundamental aspect of this providing piece for the masculine, like the hunting and the providing, things start to go south really fast.
would you say um, when I look at um, men who are self actualized, I see purpose and connection to purpose much more commonly than providing. And
Yes.
I'm curious how you think purpose plays into that. as well.
This is cool because this is exactly what I was mentioning in the way that we earn the money.
Mm,
So if I'm earning the money by living on purpose, then yeah, it's going to be great. There's going to be curiosity and fun and play and joyfulness and all the things that you had mentioned before. So, but I do believe that like the money portion is the anchor. And so if I'm bringing in money and I'm doing it from a place of service and being on purpose and really knowing in my deepest heart, like, yeah, this is why I'm on the world. The money's going to come anyways.
mhm,
The money's going to be a byproduct of that.
right.
But without money, or when a man, David Dita talks about like there's this space sometimes where a man knows his purpose is done. And when a man knows his purpose is done, he has to be willing to let it die. And
Mm,
he has to be willing to sit in that space between purposes. And sometimes a man's purpose is just to like sit in the space of not knowing and just be honest about it
mhm.
and not go out and date a bunch of women and not go out and watch a bunch of porn or eat a bunch of food or drink a bunch of beer. Like that's the challenge for like the more conscious man. And I think that's the modern man's dilemma. The conscious man's dilemma is, gosh, how do I deal with all of these intricacies and balancing acts of having an anchor in my life, making sure that I'm providing for myself and my partner and don't lose myself in the process, stay on purpose, whatever my purpose actually is.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier when you were talking about your relationship and this idea of being like completely unmasked and seen.
Yeah,
So earlier today, do you like Kyle Cease or do you know Kyle
I
Cease?
do. Yeah, he's cool.
So I was
Yeah.
listening to just one of his talks earlier this morning, and he had an interesting analogy that I've never heard before. So he talked about having this watch, like this really kind of snazzy, sharp watch that you want people to like see and acknowledge. And yet you put it in a box and you go into the basement and you dig a hole and you bury the watch in the box in the dirt. You put all the dirt on top. You walk back up the basement stairs. You close the door. And that's like your essence. And we so want people to see who we are. And yet we bring it down into the basement and put it in a box and then bury it in the dirt. And then we're upset when in our most intimate relationships, we don't feel seen.
Hmm. That's so good.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, yeah, because gosh, it goes back to, and I don't hate to be so reductionistic. I just know this sounds reductionistic. It goes back to my ego structure wanting to have some type of control of an outcome. So if I can hide my watch in the bottom of the box, then I won't actually ever have to let it come out and shine. And that's challenging because it's like, oh, wait a minute, I'm the one blocking my own light from shining. I'm the one putting my watch in the box. That's sometimes hard to swallow.
Yeah. Are there any ways that you think you're putting parts of yourself in a box and hiding it?
I think so. I think right now, what I'm feeling and the lessons I've been learning in quarantine, lockdown, it's literally a forced lockdown, is that my healthy expression of anger is actually one of my beautiful gifts. And I think that we can express anger in a way that's of service without disrespecting other people, without belittling people, without hurting other people. Like I think all of us during this time, I know I am. I'm feeling the collective despair. I'm feeling a lot of collective despair in my meditations and my breath work. Like, whew, I mean, I was feeling it this morning, just sitting. We have a place here and I was looking at the lagoon and I was just feeling, I'm like, man, these animals, like they know their path. They know how to treat the planet. They know how to treat each other. What's wrong with us? Like, what are we learning here? It's like this schoolyard for souls. And so many people have just disconnected from their own nature. The phrase human nature. Whew. I kind of forgot your question because I was just feeling so much of that despair again.
I,
What was your initial question?
I was asking you if in your current relationship right now,
Yes.
there's still parts of yourself that you're putting in a
Yes. Thank
box
you.
and hiding.
Thank you. Sometimes emotions can be a lot, right? Especially if you're like an empath. So what I've discovered is that my lack of expression of healthy anger is a dampening. It's putting the watch in a box. So it's a current lesson that I'm exploring to express healthy anger in a way where I'm not accusing the other person of something or I'm not making the other person wrong. Literally just to express like I'm fucking angry
Yeah.
because of fill in the blank or I'm fucking upset because I'm feeling like that's a great communication tool, by the way.
Mhm.
I'm feeling like I can't do this, or I'm feeling this way, rather than you make me feel right. It's a big difference, the type of language you use. So that's my lesson right now.
Or like the story I'm telling myself right now is blank.
That's beautiful. I
Yeah.
love that. Like, hey, can you help me out? I'm stuck in a story right now. My story is telling me that I'm not enough because of this.
Yeah. And I find that actually so empowering. Like when I think about relationships where I've been with a man who's really able to be in touch with his feelings and express them without directing them at me. So, like, I'm feeling really upset right now. Here's why. Because then that
Yeah.
gives me permission to share the full spectrum of my emotions with him and it feeling safe.
Yeah. The worst thing we can ever do, like, this is a big one. If you just get one thing from this part of the conversation, the worst thing you could ever do is point a finger at your partner and say, you're making me feel this, or you're doing this, therefore I feel this, because there's nowhere for them to go. They're cornered in that way.
Mhm.
So a better way to do it, like you shared, or even one that came up for me right now, is I'm feeling tension in my chest right now. Can I have a moment? Can I take a breath? Because I want to come to a place with you that is truthful. I want to be truthful with you, but I'm feeling so much pressure in my body. Is it okay if I take a breath? Like, ask your partner if it's okay if you take a breath. Man, that is a big one.
Mhm.
That's a really powerful one. And then after you take the breath, you can respond instead of reacting. And that's a lifelong practice right there.
Yeah. So I was listening to another interview you had done. I think it was with Connor Beaton on Man Talks. And you talked about, hold on one sec. Um, oh, realizing that all women are not your mother and how that kind of template gets imprinted at such an early age. Do you think that that's common among people, that they'll be physically with a romantic partner and it's as if their mom or their dad or whoever the parent or caregiver was that caused them pain is there instead?
I mean, that's a really big question. The short answer is yes. I think so. And especially there's been 3 or 4 people that I've done podcasts with where we really unpack this. So one that comes up for me is Dr. Greg, and we talked about the way that men and women, mostly men, they eroticize fantasies because they're wounded. And so what happens, especially with pornography addiction, is Dr. Greg Woodhill was the gentleman that I interviewed, and he specializes in men that have an unhealthy relationship with porn. And so when men are hurt, when the masculine is wounded, what they really just want is love and connection. And so love and connection can be perceived by the conscious mind, by the ego driven mind, as a screen. A screen can become some type of fake bullshit connection. But really, what's happening is the man is wounded. And so, what's even more sinister is the ego will seek out on screens ways that it knows it's not enough, like the kind of pornography where men are being shamed or beaten or stomped on by women. It'll actually validate that not enoughness.
Yeah,
And so we see this perversions, and really, really, honestly, it's sickness. It's
yeah,
sickness that we're seeing with this pornography. It'll validate wounded men. Now, those same wounded men, if they're not careful, will seek out partners that will also abuse them. And this is something that I've dealt with in the past, where I didn't have the same kind of awareness that I have now, where I sought out a partner in my late 20s, where there was nothing I could ever do that was enough, because that was me making my ego right by never being able to please this woman. And so it's really the disconnection from the ego, the
yeah,
relaxation from the ego, that allows me to stay in my center. And then she's all about me all the time because I'm in my center. That's the big difference. And that's, to answer your question, we attract the lesson we need to learn, and we continue to attract it. You ever see people that are married 4 times, 5 times, and they're like, I don't know what it is. I can't figure it out. They need to go sit in some plant medicine journeys and do breath work and do some deep CBT therapy to really get down there. Because talk therapy is only, this level. So I hope that answered your question.
oh, I'm just taking a moment with that. The other day I got a question from a woman in the group who was asking me, why is my partner more interested in watching porn than having sex together? And I think you kind of hit on an element of it.
Yep. Yeah.
There's also no real risk, and there's a lot of affirmation that comes with
Yeah.
porn, I would imagine.
Yeah.
There's no rejection. You know, it's not like you're not performing good enough or you're not big enough or whatever it might be.
I mean, straight up, Leah, anybody can get naked with enough alcohol, with enough drugs, with enough anything. Anybody can get naked. But if you really want to be vulnerable, you have to actually like be naked in your heart, be naked in your soul. That's fucking intimacy. Like I would have never, like, it's so cool being able to sit here and speak that to you and know it's true rather than reading it in a book and being like, oh, I guess that's true. Yeah. No, I've experienced enough heartbreak and enough hurting other people that I realized I was masking my own insecurity and my lack of vulnerability to actually be seen.
Yeah.
And so therefore I would use porn, use women, do all these things that dishonored the feminine for so long that I think karmically I'm still healing from. Right. And that's okay because I'm just being honest about it. Like it's all good. We're all healing. We all have our healing path. But this woman, my heart goes out to her because what she gets to do is put her man in a men's group immediately. Well, not put him, but like let him know that it's important to her that he goes. I lead a men's group as well. So we meet twice a month and I've been doing it for 5 years. We study the work of David Data and Robert Augustus Masters and even Esther Perel's journey as well. Like so many talented authors and teachers, both men and women that we follow, and all roads eventually lead to ego relaxation, healing capital T trauma or lower T trauma, and getting real with each other about what sexuality and what intimacy really is. And I mean, I'll definitely credit my partner. Like we have gone so deep in less than a year, you know, in really like me being vulnerable and sharing with her about my past pornography addiction and sharing with her about my struggle with food. And she's had her own unique struggles, you know, but it's that ability to just take a breath, put down the walls and be like, hey, I'm on a healing journey. Are you on a healing journey too? Because if that's true, then we can bring in the joy as well. But
Mhm.
if we don't admit that we're on the healing journey, then we're never going to have place for joy. Joy can't get in because we're so focused on keeping the castle wall up, not being seen.
Yeah. You mentioned past wrongdoings or relational hurts, and that you're still working through that forgiveness process, forgiveness of yourself
Sure,
for doing
sure.
that. Can you
Yeah.
share for anyone in the group who might be feeling the same way what your process is around that? Forgiving yourself for past wrongdoing
Yeah.
when you weren't quite as conscious as you are now?
Yeah, and then this is so good. I love this conversation because I'll pre-frame it from what I've studied and like 400 podcasts. I do believe now that everything that our life is created from is the BTFA loop. We have a belief, we have a thought, we have a feeling, and then we have an action. So every single thing in the BTFA model, it all trickles down to what is my belief of any situation. It's almost like the belief is the lens on this camera, you know? So we see life through a lens, and that lens is our belief system. And then that belief system actually seeks out what kind of feelings and thoughts we can experience, you know, emotion living in the body, thoughts living in the mind. And then we go into the action, and the action is actually what dictates the path of our life. So for anyone that's dealing with karmic burn, that's where I feel like I am. I feel like I'm in a karmic burn. I feel like I burned off a lot, actually, like like a lot. But I feel really good because I know that any kind of karmic burn that I'm going to experience in the future, like I have the tools to be with myself. And you know, many women that I slept with or that I had relations with in my 20s, you know, it wasn't necessarily the most conscious interactions. Now, granted, I never hurt anyone, I never abused anyone, I never took advantage of anyone, but I did take advantage of situations. And so there's healing that comes with that by actually, you know, really owning up to what we've done. You know, if we lived in a tribe back in the day and we hurt someone or something happened, we would all come in front of the village. We would admit our wrongdoings and we would cry, we would yell, we would do whatever we need to, and then we would be forgiven and moved on. But if we don't come to terms with the council within ourselves or within our community, I mean, this is even healing and cathartic right now.
Yeah.
A lot of people I've never met. I don't know many people here in the group. Just being able to admit and just be truthful about, hey, you know what? In my past, I've done some things that really I'm not proud of, but I do own the fact that I am committed to experiencing the karmic burn of them now and in the future, and I'm okay with it all. It's not being angry or like shameful about my past.
Yeah.
It's more like, let me just accept and surrender that, like, dude, you did the best you could. That was the consciousness you had at that time. And that was the growth path you were on. You needed to experience hurting other people. You needed to experience feeling guilty. You needed to experience addiction. You know, it's been it's been almost a year since I've even like consumed any kind of pornography whatsoever, and I don't have the drive to consume it either because um, I had a deep spiritual moment with a mentor that helped me guide me through that, and his name was Paul Check. He's been on the show a couple times.
Mhm.
And what he taught me was that any addiction, no matter what it is, OCD thoughts, addiction, sideways energy, they're all just a lack of being a father to myself. And so what I'm working on is being a father to myself, being a father to my business, being a father to my community, and really embodying that father archetype energy that is so healing. And everybody wants to be held by their mother or their father, right? But the father lives within me.
Mhm.
Like I am my own father. I take care of myself. So that's been my healing journey. And for this woman who's, struggling because her husband looks at a screen, that's your husband's path, or your man's path is for him to go down that route of, okay, why am I actually doing this in the first place? Am I validating that I'm not enough by creating a screen between me and intimacy? Is there trouble in our relationship that I'm scared to talk about with you? There's a myriad of things that could be driving him to watch porn, but I'll say from my own personal experience, it's a fear of actually being vulnerable. That is the number one reason why men watch porn, is because they are addicted to what it feels like when they can get the sexual reward without the vulnerability to pay.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, there's just like so much tenderness in that.
Yeah, I mean, I can feel it right now. It's like, you know what it is there's peace there. There's peace in surrendering to the fact that when you can just be honest about what's transpired without the presence of shame, judgment, or guilt, and just be honest about the stuff that's occurred, it's fucking cathartic.
Mhm.
Because then it's like, I mean, I'm getting tingles in my arms just talking to you. Like, this is why we're here on the planet, is to learn and move forward without the presence of beating ourselves with the shame drum or the guilt or all this stuff. And so what I monitor in my awareness now, Leah, is when the shame drum starts pounding, or when something comes up that I feel guilty about, or that I start to feel kind of that nauseous feeling about, I do my breath work. That's a big one. If I can breathe, I can choose my next step. And yeah, I mean, I'm even just feeling that right now. My heart goes out to all men that are caught in that cycle. I don't know what it's like to be a woman in that cycle. I know women do get in that cycle too. But just if I could plant a seed for any man watching, or any woman who's with a man that has that type of addiction, or that's looking at the screen, what they really need is softness and understanding. They don't need your anger or your edge. They need softness and understanding, and they need your courage to set a healthy boundary and say, if you're not willing to look at this, I love myself enough to leave.
Yep.
If you're not willing to look, I love myself enough to leave.
Could you give your best shot at a script? Let's say there's a woman who um, isn't able to take anymore that disconnection. So
Yeah.
wanting to be sexually connected to her partner preferring to watch porn. Could you give us like 2 or 3 sentences that she could use to kind of kick off those boundaries and that conversation?
The first thing I would have her do is make sure that she's coming from her heart. And I'm sure this has happened in your group before, where there's exercises and ways of beings to get you in your heart. A really powerful teacher in this is John Wineland. Connor's great at it too. Make sure that when you address your man with this, that you're actually going to be talking to his inner young man. You're going to be talking to his little boy inside. And so don't treat this like you're a mother screaming at a boy, or you're a woman screaming at a man. Like, really do your work before you go to him. Even schedule it. I would say the best thing to do would be like, hey baby, can we hang out tonight from 6:30 to 7? I really just want to drop in with you and connect. Like, set the tone before you even get there.
Yeah.
Then once you get there, do your work to prepare, be in your heart, look into his eyes. I mean, that's just magic for men. If your man's conscious in any way, and he is here and he's not asleep, he'll love the fact that you're in your heart. The greatest gift you could ever give to a man is for you to be in your heart. I mean, God, that's like, it's just, it makes me smile just thinking about it. So you do that, and that's your prep. And then the sentence you could say to him is, I've been feeling sad lately. I've been feeling stressed out lately. I've noticed that I feel when we have sex or when this topic comes up, that I feel fill in the blank. I feel neglected. I feel like I miss you, whatever it is. And I'm concerned about the health of our relationship. Notice how during that time, you're not saying, I want you to stop watching porn, or I think your porn is messing us up. You're turning it on yourself as his loving partner. You're in your heart. Maybe you cry. Maybe you cry. Cool. And just start with that. So set the time, ask for permission, um, be in your heart, express from an I am perspective, not you are, and just see where that goes, and just continue to be in your breath as you do it. I think that's the best start. But um yeah, we all know. I think every man knows. Every man knows when he's got a problem. It takes men sometimes longer than others, depending on their level of work that they've done, their self awareness work. I mean, I can look back on a journal that I did like 7 years ago, and I was like, "Do I have a porn problem?" Question mark. Like 7 years ago. So it took a while.
Mhm.
You know, it took quite some time for me to swallow that and to ride the dragon.
Yeah.
That's a great start for anyone.
Yeah. And I would also acknowledge that it takes a lot of courage for a woman to initiate that conversation. I know
Absolutely.
personally, I've had several experiences, even recently, with men. I'm 38, men in their late 30s, even through their late 40s,
Sure.
where when I gently and lovingly express what's in my heart, they leave. Like they just disappear without really any word. And
Mhm.
so it's taken a lot of work on my end to get to a place where I continue to express my heart and, and have the courage to show up authentically, and from that place, detach from how they respond.
Yeah, that is work. You know, it's interesting. Like, I feel like this is pertinent. It's the man's responsibility to tune in that situation, and it's the woman's responsibility to be courageous and to say, "This is what I'm willing to take."
Mhm,
It's the same thing with like the Me Too, the We Too. Like, yeah, it's the man's responsibility to tune in. Like, if she's not feeling it, you kind of know,
mhm,
and it's her responsibility to say no. So there's work on both sides. You know, it's never one or the other.
right.
And I think that God, building this courage is the most important thing. I mean, courage is like, if there was one tool that people could build that for relationship and business, it is the courage to stop, sense, breathe, feel, and then express. That's where the rubber meets the road, and that's an everyday practice that I think gets easier over time, but it like never goes away.
Right.
Definitely never goes away.
Yeah. And I think also there have been moments where I have been courageous enough to share, and then I've energetically picked up that they weren't able to receive it, and so I've shrunk. And
Mm.
I think courage part two would be not shrinking in response to their reaction.
There's a blend of two things, because if you're in your heart and you're expressing, and inside of you it feels like you're really connected to what you're saying, and he belittles you, or he doesn't want to connect, or whatever it is, you need to let him know, like, there's a timeline for this.
Mhm,
Like, if you have, let's say, 3 to 5 of those sessions where you sit with him, you're in your heart, you use the I am language, and you express to him your truth, and maybe you cry, maybe you don't, but he can feel you, and you do that 3 to 5 times. I think if your man doesn't respond in any way, or if he doesn't somehow come to grips with what's going on, I think you might be with the wrong man. It's a
mhm,
sign that you might be with the wrong man.
yeah.
Over the course of 3 months, or 6 months, if you bringing this up and there's no work that he wants to do, you might not be with a man who's ready to grow, and that's okay. Because look, every woman deserves to be ravished, and loved, and all these things. And every man deserves that too, but it's our work inside of ourselves that blocks this from occurring. It's an organic thing. So we have to feed and water it together. If he's not willing to feed and water, and you are coming to him with all the tools we talked about, then you might just want to go to a new place and grow some new fruit, some new produce. Easier said than done, but I think that's the path.
I love that note. I kind of like the idea of ending on that note, but there was one additional question that I wanted to ask you about. What do you think separates people who are in gathering mode, learning, listening to the podcast, doing the
Yeah.
courses, working with a coach or a therapist, and the embodiment of it?
Yeah. What a great question. Um, you know, I think it's really easy. I mean, I have probably 300 books sitting on my left here, and I haven't read half of them because I won't allow myself to just read a whole bunch and then not apply it. The greatest gift that we could give to ourselves when it comes to intelligence is, can we be committed to the entire intelligence process? Like, can I gather books? Can I listen to podcasts? Can I gather information? Then can I have the discipline to breathe, apply it, test it, try it on, do the thing, journal, do the emotional catharsis work, go to ceremonies, do breath work? Can I try the things that I've learned? Because that is the only path to embodying them. And even think about that phrase too, Leah. Like, if something is embodied, it's in my body. I own it in my body. It's ownership of what I've gathered and what I've applied. I mean, that's why wisdom is earned. And that's why so many people that go to ayahuasca ceremonies and do all this plant medicine, it's unearned wisdom. They can't embody it yet because they haven't gathered and applied it enough. There's just not enough time. You can only go to so many ceremonies before you're going to keep getting the same message.
Right.
And that message is stop and apply, then embody. That's it. So I think the bridge between gathering, applying, and embodying is giving yourself the time and space to do so. And once again, in that time and space, cultivating the courage to speak your truth, to feel your emotions. I just did it this morning. I just
Mhm.
did like 2 hours of my day. I'm like, well, it was necessary. It was necessary for me to feel all that stuff, you know? So that's how we get there.
I love it. Can you tell people where they can find you, what you're up to now, how they can support you?
Yeah. If you want to integrate and embody, go to wellnessforce.com/M21. It's a guide that I've put together. It's 6 science-backed research practices from over 400 shows. And it's all the things that everyone's doing that if you do them as well, your mind will calm down, and you can use breath work as a way to get there. So that's the first thing is wellnessforce.com/M21. And then the second thing is just reach out to me, listen to the podcast. It's wellnessforce.com. It's wellness force online. If I said something that you are like upset about, good. Let's talk about it. And if I said something cool, then give me a message. But that's how you can support us. And that's the gateway. You know, if you just go and download the M21 guide, you can start accessing everything else that we're up to. It's all built in there.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Josh, so much for your time today. I believe so wholeheartedly that our time is the most precious thing we have. And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for you for sharing it with us and for sharing some of the really courageous things you shared about porn and the inner work and vulnerability. So it means so much to me. And I know it means so much to the group as well.
Thank you, and thanks for creating the space for me to put that out there. You know, some of the things that we explored today, I haven't gone there in a while, and so it was nice to go there because every time I go and clean the well, like the water is more pure. So you allowed me to clean the well today, which is what we all deserve.
Love it. Well,
Yeah,
thanks again, Josh. Stay safe and enjoy your pause and all of the growth
that's
and
right.
awareness that comes from it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Catch you soon. Okay, bye everyone.